Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing this evening with so many folks who believe that personal development is so important that you're willing to give up your personal leisure time. You and I are from the same tribe. What does that mean? We're from a tribe that says, what could be more important than maximizing your capacity to add value to others? Because that's what this afternoon is about. It's about you making other people extraordinary. It's about you creating a space around you that just by other people being in your space makes them extraordinary. Right? It's about creating an environment of workability around you that attracts people to you. So when I talk about the 7 insights into the power to persuade, what I'm also going to be talking about is who do you need to be to achieve what it is you want to achieve. Because let me give you what is going to be the beginning of a series of Lipkinisms this afternoon. A Lipkinism is a truth that cannot be denied. Okay? As you can hear, I'm not a man who suffers from self-esteem deficit. But here's what I believe. I could be wrong, although not likely. Who you are being when you are saying what you are saying says more than anything you are saying. Let me repeat that. Who you are being when you are saying what you are saying says more than anything that you might be saying. Now I want to ask you a question. When you're in a meeting, do you consciously get yourself into a state of being that makes other people want to be around you? Because how many of you have noticed sometimes you go into a meeting and you're not happy? Ever gone into a meeting on a Monday morning still suffering from the weekend? Ever gone into a meeting and you weren't really there? You had quit but you had stayed, right? And you're in the meeting and you're being the wrong kind of person but you're saying the right things and you're getting the wrong response and you don't know why? It's because you're consciously not being the kind of person other people want to be around. So I'm not here today to talk to you about your technical competence. I know there are people here from a range of different categories, from a range of different industries. I'm here to talk to you about the most important factor that characterizes leaders, and that's the ability to communicate, the ability to connect, the ability to influence, the ability to persuade. And I'm going to give you this insight right up front. Charisma, which is defined by the dictionary as having power or influence over others, is a direct function of your level of participation. So if you truly want the power to persuade and you wanted my entire seminar in the next 30 seconds, here it is. If you want to persuade others, be fully in the moment. Right? How many times have you been in a meeting, you were kind of there, sort of there, quasi there, semi there, and you kind of got quasi results. You got semi-results, but you didn't get the results you wanted because your brain was somewhere else. In fact, even now, as you sit here listening to me, how many of you are thinking about stuff you should have done this morning? Stuff you have to face this evening, right? You are suffering from what I call CPA, continued partial attention. And I'm going to share with you during the course of this afternoon how when you're in a meeting, you make the people in the meeting feel like they are the only people who matter. Because here's what I want to share with you. The way you listen to me today is going to become my opinion of myself. How deep is that? The way you listen to other people becomes their opinion of themselves. All right? And how many times have you not listened to someone when they were talking to you? Especially if that person was your wife or your husband. We're going to talk a lot about that. I've been trained by my wife. So this afternoon is about 7 insights that will help you master the power to persuade, that will take you to the next level, that might grow your capacity by a lot or might grow your capacity by a little. I have a favorite philosopher who I follow called Yogi Berra. You heard of Yogi Berra? Yogi Berra said, little things are big. And that truth has never been more true than it is now. So maybe I'm going to give you some things that will lead to a personal epiphany, a personal breakthrough. Maybe you'll leave here transformed. Who knows? Or maybe you'll leave here just having taken yourself up by a heartbeat. But here's what I know. Every tiny molecule of improvement counts. Because I don't know about you, but in my business, it's brutally competitive. By the way, how many of you in this room are in the business of selling? Okay. So I'm talking to salespeople. Well, let me tell you what our research says are the 3 hallmarks of the world's best salespeople. Number 1, they sell themselves first. So whether you're in the business of IT, whether you're in the business of healthcare, or whether you're in the automotive business, when you are in front of a prospect or a customer, you're selling yourself. You're selling yourself both as a source of ideas and solutions and intellectual capital. You're selling yourself as a portal into what the rest of your organization has to offer. But you are the individual that the customer is going to interface with. So when you sell yourself, what are you selling? We're going to talk a lot about that this afternoon. Second thing the great sales folks do is they sell their organization. And the third thing they do is they sell their products and services. Because we're in an age where increasingly products and services are being commoditized. There's very little tangible differences between products and services. So it's you and the company you represent that gives others the confidence, the security, the comfort, or the inspiration to deal with you. Does that make sense? Okay. So, the first insight into the power to persuade is what I call live in the sweet spot of what, why, and how. Focus is power. Focus means you take all your energy and you direct it where you're going to get the highest return on your focus. And here's another Lipkinism. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Right? I mean, how many of you know people who major in minor things? They get caught in the thick of thin things. How many of you have ever been in a meeting that went nowhere? It went around and around and around, and you said to yourself, if I don't get out of here soon, I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. And then you said it. On the other hand, I know that many of us have the pleasure and the privilege of working with people who keep the main thing the main thing. They cut through the clutter and they get to what counts. And then they focus their energy on what counts, and surprise, surprise, they get the results. So here's my question to all of you today. If you look at the what, what's the specific inspirational outcome you want to achieve today that will make today a fabulous experience for you and an experience that you believe will help you have your best year ever? What's one outcome you want to receive today that will help you have your best year ever? Would you agree with me that's a reasonable question? Well, based on my experience, less than 1% of respondents can tell me in specific terms what the specific inspirational outcome is they want to achieve that will make this their best year ever. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You should know it, but how few people do. So in my life, I'll tell you this, my number one outcome that I want to achieve this year is I want to talk to 100,000 people the way I'm doing to you now. It's called the art of being specific. Please write down this phrase and use it as often as you possibly can. What do you mean by that? And a very simple word, why? Which takes us to the next point here. We've spoken about the what, the specific outcome. So let me just make sure we all get this. When it comes to the power to persuade, you better understand what the outcome is the other person wants to achieve. That is not just something that will help them meet budget, but something that inspires them. And if you have an outcome, make sure that you communicate your outcome in a way that inspires people around you to want to help you. So how do you share your outcome with others that they are touched, moved, and inspired by that outcome? And then how do you act as a coach to others where you get them to get specific on their outcome? Specificity equals power. Kind of, sort of, quasi doesn't cut it. And I have to tell you, there's so few people with whom I work who can create a picture of the future for me that I can see with absolute clarity. And that's what having a specific inspirational outcome is. Do you get that? Yeah. So let's now talk about why. So we've spoken about the what. Let's talk about the why, an empowering personal reason. What fires you up on a Monday to face the next 5 days? How many of you get to work on a Monday and go, yes, the weekend's over? It's Monday, baby. You laugh. I have a client, and he's in a second marriage. And there are 6 kids in his house under the age of 16. For this man, Monday morning equals safe haven. Right? But I want to ask you, what fires you up to face the next week? Because I got news for you. Either you'll be fired with enthusiasm or you'll be fired with enthusiasm. So what fires you up? Let me share something with you. If you have a why, you'll always find a how. Because the hows are changing. In fact, let me give you what might appear to be a paradoxical Lipkinism. If you don't know how, that's why you should do it, because the how gets in the way. If you don't know how, that's why you should do it, because the how gets in the way. What am I talking about? The how, by definition, is often based on yesterday. The how that worked to this day may not work tomorrow. So if you don't know how, create a how. You and I are inventing the how daily, but we will not invent a new how if we don't have a strong enough why. Now, I know I'm talking to a group of salespeople, and you know the difference between being on fire and not being on fire. It's the difference between being compelling and not being compelling. And let me give you a story that you will never forget. It's a story out of Africa. I was in Africa in the winter of 2003, the North American summer, and I gave a talk to a leadership group in a game park. Now, before your time on this planet is up, go to a game park. Go on a night drive in an open Land Rover. Go within 12 feet of a pride of lions who've just brought down their zebra, and they're feasting on it. That gives new meaning to eat what you kill. Anyway, this night was a perfect evening. It went exactly the way it was supposed to go. And, you know, if you think I'm even half coherent sober, you should hear me after a bottle of quality South African Pinot Noir. And that night, I was spectacular, right? Anyway, eventually, you know, all good things come to an end, and the hour became late. And at midnight, as we were going back to our tents, the game ranger said to us, make sure to fasten the flaps of your tent securely, because when the fire dies down, the predators come in. When the fire dies down, the predators come in. So how are you stoking your fire? And by the way, you know what? The other day someone said to me, Mike, how come you're always so excited? What are you on? Want some? I said, I'm not on anything, but I do attend all my own seminars. Okay? So what am I saying to you here? Connect with your passion. Find a passion. Sometimes you might need to reconnect with that passion. Because I'll tell you this, and if I look out over the audience, the demographic in this room is representative of the demographic of the US and Canada, and that is 50% of Americans and Canadians in the workforce are over the age of 40. By 2013, it'll be closer to 55% over the age of 40. The mantra of the North American worker has become, we are middle-aged and we are tired. What's happening to your mojo? Right? Connect with your why. So I told you, my why is I just want to get people excited. My what is I want to talk to 100,000 people this year. So now let's talk about the how. Your mission, just like mine is today, is to give people total, unassailable confidence that if they take the direction you are suggesting, they will get the results that they want to get. Remember what I said to you, they're processing every word you say through a filter that says, what does this mean to me? Let me pause for a second. Let me just pause for a second. And let me ask you this question. Are you listening to me? Yes. Good. And by the way, there's a chasm of difference between hearing something and listening to something. Hearing something means you're vaguely aware of a noise somewhere. Listening is when you focus on what you are hearing. But the number one reason why you're listening to me is I appear to be certain that these insights will get you what you want. So I'm going to ask you to have a strategy, because when you share your strategy with others, you give them a sense that you know what you're doing. And by the way, what's the opposite of strategy? Just give me what's the opposite of strategy? Chaos. And what emotion is associated with chaos? Fear. Stronger than fear. It's called panic, terror. So if you don't have a strategy, I'm telling you, you're going to experience chaos and fear and panic. Normal has been replaced by massive continuous unpredictability and volatility. You better have a strategy to manage your way through the chaos, through the complexity, through the uncertainty. And by the way, if you cannot articulate your strategy in 30 seconds or less in a way that gets me, you don't have a strategy, number one. Number two, I'm not sure I'm going to be the one who votes to work with you. Look, let me share with you what I'm saying. I'm a guy whose key customers are meeting planners and event organizers. Right? And God knows there are something like 50,000 professional speakers in the US and Canada. Right? It's a pretty commoditized industry that I'm in. Now, because of who I am and what I've become, I make it to the short list of some very, very important events. But the short list is a long way from getting the deal. How many of you have ever made it to the short list and you didn't get the deal? Doesn't it drive you crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, how many of you have thought, like, I'm so perfect for this? Our product is so perfect. How could they not see this? How could they be so stupid? Anyway, so what happens to me is I get to the final 5, right? And what happens after about a half-hour interview is the decision maker will say to me, Mike, thank you for all the information you've given us. We have one final question to ask you, and that is, why should we choose you versus the other 4 people that we are speaking to? How many of you have ever received some kind of question like that, some version of that? So I've waited for this moment. So what I share with them is because I will give your people the proprietary insights that will ignite their imagination, that will get them so excited that they will do those things they otherwise would never have done to get the results they otherwise would never have got. And I do the hand thing. And I have to tell you, in at least 50% of the cases, that 30-second delivery of my strategy gets me the deal. Not because it's so fantastic, but because at that very moment my competitors fumble the ball. They come up with something like, because we're reliable, because we're professional, because we operate from a place of honesty and integrity. Look, don't get me wrong, those are important things to say, but Maslow would call those things hygiene factors. If you don't have them, you don't get the deal. But they're not motivating factors. They're not the thing that gets you the deal. And here's what I find extraordinary. I mean, I do this 170 times a year. I'll talk to over 100,000 people this year, and so few people can tell me what their strategy is in a way that moves and inspires me. This is not going to cost you any money defining what your strategy is. In fact, if you put your mind to it, you could do it in a very short space of time. Why am I asking you to do that? Because have you ever been to a meeting like this where you've got some good stuff like you're getting now, and then you didn't do anything with it? Right? What kind of return did you get then? Whereas now just writing your strategy, sending it to me means you've taken action, you've put it out there. And I'll give you a response. Now, where your what, why, and how intersect, that's called your sweet spot. That's why you're looking at a man who's about as happy as any 48-year-old has a right to be. I'm living in the epicenter of my sweet spot. I want to talk to 100,000 people. The reason is I want to get people excited, and my strategy is to give people the insights that ignite their imagination, that get them excited, that get them to take the action, that get them the results that they desire. I mean, you cannot ask for more than that. If all you did as a result of this program is clarify those 3 elements for yourself, then you would take yourself to the next level. And by the way, help other people do the same. There's an ancient African idiom that says, umuntu ungumuntu gabantu. We are all angels with one wing. We can only fly while embracing each other.